What was the emotional moment or realization that finally pushed you to launch PNG Kantri Blo Yumi on 18th of October 2025?
Thank you, Corinne. That question just seems to flow with what we're talking about. Like I spoke about my mentor as a leader, and I was so blessed to have my journey cross paths with, like, I'd say, the latest dynamic leader, political leader here in PNG. Is now the PNG opposition leader, and the thing that makes it so kind of amazing is that we're also from different parts of the country. We're both from different parts of the country, but when our paths first crossed, it was like we knew each other for ages. And so my mentor, who is about 5 years younger than me, that's the other kind of extraordinary thing. He, we refer to him as coach, and he got voted into parliament in 2022 and just came in with this like new energy and new vision. And in 2022, he wrote an article, and it was a Christmas message to the people of PNG. And in that article, there was this thing about Kantri Blo Yumi, the the initials KBY. And what he stated in the message was to not let this word Kantri Blo Yumi, like, we don't forget about it. And the more I kept thinking of it, like right now, PNG, because of our cultures, there's so much division. And going back, I don't like talking about this, but like my former partner married someone from another region, like the area where my mentor is from. And to show real forgiveness, I embraced the other culture, the other region. And my paths crossed with the leader, like that just solidified everything. And I'd say through God's grace and that forgiveness, it makes you like want to love your enemies and to bring to bring unification. PNG may be seen as like Africa, and Africa, like they talk about Pan-African movement being one nation. And right now, with the issues that the country is going through, the provinces want to split apart, starting with our province of Bougainville. There was civil war there back in the 90s, and the PNG, the way it looks, the Bougainvilleans want their independence, but PNG doesn't want to let them go because once Bougainville goes, then the other provinces would also like autonomy. So there's a lot going around, like on the political scene and socially, affected the country economically, though we're supposed to be rich. And I think it comes back to like united we stand, divided we fall. And to me, that is like my faith in life, to to preach it, to get the propaganda out. Yeah, like when we look back in history, we read that Hitler changed the minds of people through propaganda and awareness. And the only way that we can bring change for our future generations is by being united.
Why was it important that your son Elijah be part of this project with you?
Yes, with Elijah, he's more into online trading, and because he hasn't like done the research or look for a mentor, it was more like gambling for him. And when I started to when I tried to start the channel, it was like a 2 year vision or a dream. I went back to school and was given an assessment to do a video that I knew nothing about. And for 2 years, I hadn't done anything, so busy with other stuff. And so Elijah, the part where he helped me in was with the technical side, like converting a YouTube video or a Facebook video into a normal video and that sort of thing. But then we also challenged each other that we said in 12 months' time, let's see who's the first to make this X amount of money. And so it was good for Elijah to, he also helped me get the whatever creation we done onto TikTok from YouTube. And then him and my big son Iga, who studied this IGA, who studied aviation, where the both fell into mental health illness. So a week after I got my first videos out, I lost my laptop and Elijah felt ill, but now he's back and determined to look for a mentor for his online trading. But it
What
was
happened?
important that he,
And what
yeah,
happened with the laptop? How did you lose your laptop?
that's a really good question. I was talking about spiritual attacks, and when I was fearful of like whatever evil spirits that manifested, we can't deny that we also live in a spiritual world. Destroyed the laptop. I was trying to combat it with preaching from the scriptures,
Wow.
and yeah, just out of this world, the laptop got just held down to the ground. It was like the enemy was just totally
But
against.
I mean, with invisible force.
Yes, yes, getting
Wow.
hold through manifestation of my son. Yeah,
Ah.
yeah. And at that time, just to add a bit more context, at that time, content creation was something I voiced with my kids. And so my big son went through a period where he did not know what he was doing, but he went a bit viral on TikTok here in PNG, like for the wrong reasons. So going back to one of your questions also, starting or going online to advocate on mental health illness is also a way of maybe some sort of revenge to the enemy. Yeah,
And your channel addresses politics, humanitarianism, emotional intelligence, and leadership. Why did you
right.
choose such a multi-dimensional approach rather than focusing only on news?
Yeah, Corinne, your questions just all seem to be flowing like with what we are discussing. Because, we talk about my laptop um, going missing, and that like coincided my mom. So I didn't create content for about 3 months. And when it got to January and I started going back to work, I just thought I'd just take random videos while traveling to work. And then, because I couldn't create much without a laptop, so right now my channel just kind of copies and pastes news, political news. Um, so probably that answers one part of the question and uh, addresses it. However, with dynamic leadership and emotional intelligence and lifelong learning, those are what I learned in the postgraduate course. It was a Masters of Business Admin course for 24 months, which I completed 18 months. And part of the reason why I resigned from my past job is that they couldn't assist me with the tools to move on with my studies. Because back then, my laptop, in my business, I spilled coffee into my laptop, which I had for about 18 months. And it came closer to the exams, and I was stressing. And I was so lucky I had a colleague who I helped familiarize himself with the learning platform. He got me a laptop.
What responsibility comes with speaking publicly about national issues in Papua New Guinea today?
Yes, that is a kind of a delicate topic. Uh, Recently in PNG, if I just go straight to that, they've introduced this Cybercrime Act where those who go kind of out of context or over criticize politicians, they can be taken to court with a fine of 25,000 kina. That would be about, I'd say maybe we divide it by five with the US dollar, maybe about 10,000 US dollars. Or for those who commit the crime at the corporate level, it could even be 25 years of imprisonment. So the responsibility that we have is to keep whatever we're creating in line within those boundaries. And what I do most is just look at what's printed by our leader, what's publicly released, and just work on that. There's not a lot of kind of commentaries on media releases. Even the journalists back here in PNG are also criticized widely for not being that investigative in their probing. Usually, like we just recently, we had a healthcare crisis, and that came to light because of an Australian journalist with SBS Dateline who came in and exposed it and spoke to the health minister and just brought everything into the public's attention. So that responsibility also comes with the journalists not kind of doing what they really should or their potential according to their potential. So yeah, it's the responsibility that we have to be careful.
Your channel title emphasizes Kantri Blo Yumi, your country. What does ownership of the nation mean to you personally, Evan?
Another wonderful question, Corinne. To me, ownership, because when I studied psychology back in undergraduate level, I also was I was advised to study strategy, and in strategy, my lecturer is now one of the kind of a big advisor for the government. He always spoke about ownership, about awareness and advocacy. So it's good to write up plans and strategies, but we need ownership of that. And it all comes back to, I would bring it back to PNG's, like we have five directive principles, five national goals and directive principles, and a few of them talk about equal participation, equality, and then we also have what they call the Vision 2050. So this the architecture. It was released in 2010. Is a 40-year plan, and so a vision is like a roadmap from here to there. And my criticism on this vision, with both at the political level and the bureaucratic level, is that not enough ownership and advocacy has gone out for that. And because of that, like how can the people take ownership of it? And that's kind of in line with what we're trying to do now, is that if the government cannot do advocacy and awareness, then we can use these sort of platforms to get the message out to the people, like those in the rural dwelling settings, and they understand that these are the standards that have to be reached, and whether we are achieving them or not, especially with the national elections coming up again next year, yeah, after 5 years.
In your opinion, what are the greatest obstacles currently preventing transformative change in your country?
I think that's an easy one. One of the greatest ones, which is, excuse me, which is widespread, in PNG is that of corruption. We've had successive governments that maybe dating back to as early as independence. The first few years after independence was good. We still had evidence of our colonizers, Australia especially, evident in society, like in our schools, the infrastructure we had. We never had many blackouts then. And corruption, when we go through the year, dates back, sort of was highlighted in 2011. And at that time, we called the government the kitchen cabinet. And then we had a change of government, which brought a lot of development, but also a lot of questions posed by the people. And so the former prime minister stepped down with integrity. And from my view and perspective, I believe that the former prime minister has learned from his mistakes and he'd come back as a bigger and better person. However, there's a lot of ego within the political ranks and maybe unforgiveness. And so we had a new prime minister in 2019, and the prime minister came in with slogans like the richest black PNG country, the richest black Christian country, and that we would not import rice by 2025 and many few others promises. But to this date, inflation has hit high in PNG. We have been ranked as grey listed by the FATF. I think it's a committee that goes against money laundering and global terrorism. So that kind of shows that, or confirms that corruption is the biggest problem in PNG. There has to be more accountability and transparency with public funds. And having worked with the department that was supposed to be transparent with public funds, not much was done about our reports back then by those higher up in the bureaucracy. And I don't think we were lucky to be taught by our friends from Canberra, Australia. I don't know. I don't think a lot of people know the technicalities of producing reports. And so those just get dusted under the carpet. And corruption is indeed the biggest hurdle here in PNG.
You speak about revolutionary transformative change. What would that transformation look like concretely for
Mhm.
ordinary citizens?
Yes, when you talk about that, I kind of picture developed nations like maybe Portugal, Australia, especially our closest neighbors. Because I've been to Australia a few times, and we've got trains, we've got public transport that run with timetables. Whereas here in PNG, we don't have those things. In a couple of the video shots I put out, I showed the transport system here. And so my vision of transformation would be those sort of things, those sort of facilities here in PNG. But that's more like the external things we see. And it's more for me, it's more to do with internally that change. And I also learned about revolutions, paradigm shifts back in my at undergraduate level. And I think the main reason why this is because from my research, revolutions occur every 50 years. And because PNG turned 50 last year, we're due for a revolution. You
How
know,
do you define dynamic leadership even in the context of PNG?
yeah,
Dynamic leadership.
dynamic leadership to me, from what I learned uh, in my postgraduate studies, it's not about a title or about a position in a hierarchy, but it's to be able to influence others and it's like creating a movement. So when there's a movement, there's a leader. And I'm not sure if you come across this video, the dancing guy, where it's a video show where it talks about movements, where the leader starts dancing and just has to take one nut to get to go and dance with him for others to come in. And so, sorry, can you get the question again?
It's your definition about dynamic leadership
Yeah.
in
So
the
for me,
context of PNG. How would you
yes. So
define
being
dynamic leadership? Are you
yes.
okay?
So
Do you want
being
to drink some water? Do you have water next to you or something?
I've got coffee here.
Me too.
PNG flag. Yeah. So for me, in the PNG context, it would be more about consistency and living up to your values. Like it's dynamic leadership. Leadership is fighting for the vulnerable, for mothers and children, for those who don't have shelter, homeless, for those who don't have food and water, and doing it consistently, not just one day getting up and making a statement and then going into slumber for the next few weeks or months, but just tapping away at it, like trying to make a hole in a dam, and then once it gets bigger, then it just all flows. And like that would be the dynamics of it consistently and just keep on pushing relentlessly.
Which current social issues concern you the most for the younger generation?
Yes, for me, the current social issues, apart from what we see externally, is mainly to do with our inner being. They talk about motivation. Just forgot what it is. Extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation. So here in PNG, back in the day, growing up in high school, even when we walked out of school, we had to have our uniform shirts tucked into our pants. We couldn't afford to be caught smoking in public. But nowadays, it just happens everywhere. And of course, challenges provide opportunities. Like we could just take footage of them and get them reported, but that won't really help much. So I would think that for the future generation to go within themselves, to go back to the roots of the Christian foundation of this country, because we know that we're in a world that our battle is not against flesh and blood. And the other thing, the difference that I came across in studies is to do with Hofstede's 6 dimensions of culture. And one of the biggest one is individualism versus collectivism. Like in the developed world, in Australia, for example, kids can leave their homes at 18 and they learn to be independent. Whereas here in PNG, we have grown-ups still living with our parents, with our children. And if you were to walk around or observe the community here in PNG, the kids just all walk in groups, and there's a lack of emotional intelligence, which would be the one thing I am coming to, because the first 2 points I see in emotional intelligence is awareness of self and an awareness of others. And right now in PNG culture, there's not much of that happening. And that was the reason why I had to move out of my previous neighborhood, because you try to study and someone yelling on that end, someone else is on the top of the voice in their language. And like, how can we progress or how can we evolve when there's a lot of noise in society? Even when the kids are walking home, they're just yelling at each other like someone probably 50 meters away. And for those who've gone through life and who have matured, we can see that like those sort of attitudes and behaviors are not needed. And going back to, excuse me, the beginning of our conversation where we spoke about values. I went through in my journey of getting out of depression and coming to the stage where I am now. I did quite a bit of research on self-help, which also led me to the law of attraction. That's kind of new age. But I also learned that whether it's new age or old age, the truth is the truth. And that goes to like our affirmations, what we what we speak to ourselves and all that. So it comes from my research. I believe that we say that we have an attitude problem here in PNG. And if you think of an iceberg model, those elements above the waterline, like they are just there for show, like the way we dress or the music we listen to. However, those aspects below the waterline, that's where we talk about our values, our beliefs, our attitudes, our behaviors. And I came across this book of goals written by Brian Tracy, and he spoke about the core of personality. It's like concentric rings, like an onion, and the innermost core of personality, according to Brian Tracy, is values. So, what are our values? Are our values about work, career, about family, or health and fitness, or are our values about being successfully financially? And we say that attitude is the problem here in PNG, but it's like the outer rings, in the innermost ring is that of values. So if we could get this down to the future generation about developing those values and being emotional intelligent, I think that would help a lot. Just to add on quickly, when I did my online studies with a university in Australia, it was mentioned that these days in Australia, they don't really go for the intelligence quotient, IT, but it's more to do with the emotional intelligence or the emotional quotient. And with technology, I think that is in line with progressing, especially for PNG.
You made the perfect transition to the next question. What
Yeah.
role can digital platforms like YouTube play in political education and civic awareness in PNG, Papua New Guinea?
Obrigado. Thank you.
It's
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I
midnight for me, so
I'll
sorry, I
try
was
to
a bit slow asking the
bring more
question.
energy. I'll
Yeah.
try to bring more energy. Yes,
Basically,
right
it's
now,
about the role of digital platforms.
yeah.
Mm.
No, it's that's a really good question again, because right now we've got Facebook in PNG, which kind of blew up in 2009. For me, I discovered YouTube in 2019, and it is no, we cannot deny that Facebook platforms here in PNG are toxic, um, because of the lack of education, especially going down to rural areas. We have our people on Facebook who kind of talk nonsense most of the time. Apart from that, because of technology, people don't do spell checks anymore. So we've got the platform there full of nonsense, full of rubbish, and also the narrow-minded view of emotional intelligence, of against emotional intelligence. So I think it is up to those of us who were probably educated earlier, who were lucky or blessed to be taught by, say, expatriates, or who have been exposed to that level of education to use platforms in social media to kind of bring out the good news of how we can evolve as a country. And for me at this point, maybe there could be a further change in curriculum um, on the study scene. But I think what I learned I don't really mind not going back to complete the MBA in 6 months because I think I've learned what I ought to learn. And I was also taught that these days you don't need to go stand in a line to register for a business course. It's already there on YouTube. And you could drive around while driving around, listen to content that it's like you earn an informal degree in 4 years on any subject. So that's the power that technology can bring to us, to Papua New Guineans. Instead of driving around with road rage, we probably learn something while moving around. Yeah.